Since Russia's invasion of Ukraine a little over a month ago, an estimated 10 million Ukrainians have been displaced by the conflict. That's roughly a quarter of the population. Millions have already fled the country to the safety of neighboring nations like Poland, Moldova, and Slovakia. But while most are expected to remain in Europe, President Biden said last week that the U.S. will accept 100,000 Ukrainian refugees. And in Chicago, some have already arrived, with thousands more expected to follow. Joining us now are Matthew Sorens, U.S. Director of Church Mobilization and Advocacy for World Relief. That's a nonprofit providing services for Ukrainian refugees coming to the United States, as well as help for those refugees in Europe displaced by the war. And Anna Cirilli, principal at St. Nicholas Cathedral School in Chicago's Ukrainian Village neighborhood. The school has already welcomed 20 students fleeing the war in Ukraine, and thank you to you both for joining us. Anna Cirilli, let's start with you, please. As we just said, you've welcomed 20 Ukrainian students to your school. How did they come to Chicago so quickly, and how did they come to your school?
So everyone that's already arrived had visas that were already in the works, maybe something that they had started like a year ago or whatever. So they knew that they were going to need these visas. They came on either like a tourist visa or a student visa. Some of them were able to get that sort of expedited in the last few weeks, but everyone that was here already has a visa. So they're not really considered part of like the refugees that the U.S. is about to accept.
Gotcha. So, obviously students and their families, they've experienced a great deal of trauma in these last few weeks. What kind of support are you able to provide?
Yeah. And even though they're arriving here with the visas, right, they still had the stories of walking to Poland for a week or, for 9 hours, depending on their situation. And so when they arrive, they have nothing. They literally have the clothes on their back. Maybe they have 1 or 2 changes of clothes. So what we do is we bring them into like a room that has everything they need, from school supplies, toiletries, toys, clothes, everything you can think of, even gift cards so that they can go grocery shopping and have what they need for that day, for the upcoming week. And all of that is being provided by all the community members that have been reaching out in ways and trying to find ways to support us and support these students.
Matthew Sorens, what kind of work is World Relief doing to support Ukrainian refugees here in Chicago, but of course elsewhere?
Yeah, so World Relief has been receiving refugees for many years, including from Ukraine. In fact, we've, as an organization, resettled nationally about 38% of the Ukrainian refugees who've come in the last 10 years, mostly to California and Washington State, but some here into Chicagoland, about 160. The formal resettlement program was actually put on pause because of the invasion. We even had some people who were in process, which flights were canceled by the government. But with President Biden's announcement last week, we're hopeful that we'll see some of those cases rescheduled. And we don't know exactly how many refugees will be coming through the resettlement program to Chicagoland. But we hope it'll be a significant number, and especially with the concern for family reunification. So that's one way we're responding. We're working with churches and community organizations to very much, like Anna said, welcome people in, make sure that they have what they need, make sure they have housing and can find jobs. But we're also responding in Europe as well. World Relief is working with both local partners, a lot of local churches, as well as international partners, both in Western Ukraine as well as in a number of the neighboring European countries where those roughly 3.5 to 4 million refugees have fled to, with basic humanitarian needs, helping people with food, with shelter, with transportation on to other destinations as they need it. So we're really responding there and here.
And Matthew, we know that the visa process, it is not typically a very speedy one. What is the process like to bring refugees here?
Yeah, I think some people might have the situation from Afghanistan fresh in their minds. That was only 7 to 8 months ago. And that is actually not a good case study in how this normally works. That was a very unique evacuation where people fled Kabul and within a few weeks were here in Chicago. What's much more typical, frankly, is people would flee a conflict and wait in that second country. So for Ukrainians, it'd be Poland or Moldova or Slovakia, often for months or even years. And that's one reason that while we are really eager to welcome Ukrainians who are being able to be reunited to family, absolutely eager to do so, we also want to encourage the U.S. government to make sure that they're not forgetting people who have been stuck in camps for 10 or 20 years as well. But as a country, we need to figure out how to rebuild the resettlement program overall. to welcome refugees from Ukraine, but also from Syria, from the Democratic Republic of Congo, from Burma, from Afghanistan, and from many other conflicts that maybe have gone out of the news headlines. But those conflicts are still often unresolved, and people are often still waiting in camp situations or as urban refugees with the hope of resettlement to the U.S.
So you're saying a lot more work needs to be done with regard to that particular program. Anna Cirilli, any idea about how many students you can anticipate and how many can you take?
Right. So originally I had said 50. I mean, we're already almost halfway there and we're 4 weeks into this process. So, you know, as the numbers grow, and they seem to be growing rather quickly just in the last few days, we'll reassess, you know, what we can do. Before COVID, our numbers were, you know, high, so higher than they are now. So we were very flexible within that 50 that I first said. If we are able to take additional people, it would just require me bringing on some more people on staff. We're fortunate that we already have more than a handful of staff that speak Ukrainian here. So the onboarding process is fairly, you know, quick and easy and easy for the families as well. So, you know, it would just mean bringing on just more staff and potentially, you know, we could take on another 50 on top of that. And then once we get higher into like a, you know, 100 number, 250, 200 is when I just need to assess, like, what does that look like into spilling into new classrooms and hiring new staff, equipping those classrooms with the necessary materials for a safe learning environment.
Okay. A lot of work, obviously, that lies ahead for those of you who are supporting those refugees. Our thanks to our guests, Anna Cirilli and Matthew Sorens, for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.